Hey, I'm Adam Cook. Welcome to the Bite Britain podcast, a show dedicated to interviewing the most successful restaurant owners in the UK, learning about what goes into their incredible menus, but more importantly, what it takes to run the successful restaurant in this day and age. Today, I am joined by Egil Johansen. Egil is the founder of the Kenton pub in Hackney, East London. Egil took over the pub in 2009 with a vision to offer the local area a local pub they can be proud of. By sticking to doing the things that matter really well, Egil has taken the pub from strength to strength and turned the Kenton into something of a local institution. With a string of awards and recommendations, literally as long as my arm, and you can see them all on the website, it's really clear that Egil's absolutely delivered on this amazing vision that he's had. Egil, welcome to the show. How's things going, first off?
Really good, thank you.
Brilliant stuff. So I just to sort of start off, really, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about you personally, and then sort of tell us a little bit more about the Kenton.
Yeah, so I'm from Norway, a tiny little hamlet of 56 people. They're only 55 now.
56.
Yeah.
56 people. Wow, that's just feel like a family, right?
Yeah, it's basically literally just a crossroad in rural mountain Norway.
Wow.
So my parents, they used to have a tiny little petrol station / cafe on that crossroad. So right. I started working there from probably age 10, 11. Made 50p an hour plus a hamburger.
Wow. And the hamburger sounds more desirable than 50p an hour, I have to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. That was the highlight of the day. So sometimes my mum gave me some fries as well, so that was always good. So that's how I sort of that was my first experience in the hospitality industry, I suppose.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Since then, I've been working waiters in restaurants, and but I've never worked in a pub. But I've always loved pubs, and that's probably one of the reasons why I moved to this country, because I went here. I've always been an Anglophile, loved the football, loved the Britpop music, Iron Maiden, and loved the pub culture. So I then decided to move over to study at the University of Brighton.
So do they have much of a pub culture? Obviously, I mean, your hometown's obviously small, but do they have anything like similar in?
Yeah, so where I grew up, we obviously had to drive 40 minutes to the nearest town, which is Voss.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. There's 2 streets in Voss, and there's like 2 clubs, one called Pentagon, and there's like 3-4 bars, if you like. But the problem in Norway is nobody goes to a pub or a bar in the weekday.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, us Brits are good at doing that.
Yeah. So it's obviously expensive. That doesn't help. But we just don't have that drinking culture. Mm-hmm. So people in Norway kind of, well, at least in the rural parts, people binge drink. So you would then save up to the Friday.
I see. Right.
And you wouldn't go out until midnight, because you would gather in someone's house with a lot of tins from the supermarkets, and then the aim is to get as pissed as possible.
We do that in Britain as well, obviously. We do both.
Yeah, but here you kind of you go to the pub after work.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a bit tribal then, because then you sit in someone's house until 11 midnight, and then you go out, and then you're too drunk to remember, because you have to go home after 2 hours. So I'm not a big fan of that, So that's what I love about here. You can go out on a Tuesday for 1 or 2 pints. It's more casual. Obviously, you have the binge drinking, like you said here too. But
we do it all. We like to mix it up a bit,
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I've always loved to sit in a pub and to drink in pubs, and yeah.
And so obviously you did you make the move to London around the time that you actually started the pub, or was it much before that?
Yeah, no, so I moved to London 20 years ago. So I've always lived in the Victoria Park area of East London. Mm-hmm. So I used to drink in a Kenton way back, because it was a Tottenham, it was a Spurs pub.
Okay, right, yeah.
So they screened all the illegal games. So
brilliant, right, okay, yeah.
I always used to go to the Kenton on match days. And interestingly, they also showed the Arsenal games at the same time. So it was actually a pub full of Spurs and Arsenal at the
Oh,
same time.
that could be an interesting mix, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it
I'm not
was.
sure that always went so well, maybe, but
And then sometimes you had a tiny telly in the middle with West Ham. So it was
okay.
just a really interesting. I mean, it was always busy on match day,
Yeah.
but as soon as the game is finished, not much happened,
Mm.
and obviously that's why the pub closed down in 2007. So it was shut for 2 years.
And that area was very different back then. I mean, I've sort of lived in sort of London pretty much all my life, so I'm familiar with that area. Although I didn't live around the Hackney area, but the area, East London as a whole in general has changed a lot, right, in the last sort of
Yeah.
15 years or so. So I mean, so what kind of led you then from being in London? I mean, was you, when you was in London initially, was you working here, or what was you
Yeah,
doing?
so I did marketing. So I worked 5 years as a marketing
Ah,
manager
okay, right.
for the big fjord regions in Norway. So my job was to travel around the world and try to convince tour operators and travel agents and
Yeah.
to travel to Norway.
Ah,
And,
okay, right.
and Britain has always been one of our biggest markets. So that's why they stationed me with a London office,
I
which is
see.
perfect for me. And then I bought a flat at the time.
Mhm.
But then after 5 years of traveling 200 days a year, it's hard to live in a suitcase. Uh,
Yeah, I've done that myself for different reasons, but yeah, it's tough.
it's fun, but then it sort of takes its toll. So to be honest, I didn't actually know what to do, so I just quit the job without having any plans, and then I sold my flat. So I spent some money on traveling,
Mhm.
and then my friend told me, the Kenton has been already shut for a year. Why don't you just, you know, have a chat with the owners and see if you can get in? And that's what I did.
Wow. Yeah.
Uh,
So I mean, you really kind of just went kind of all in on this, really, because I mean, a lot of people would say, don't, the common advice would be, don't just pack your job in and disappear and go traveling, and then try and come up with some kind of solution to the problem later. Like, kind of do it slowly, but yeah, I think you kind of did. So I guess in a way, was you kind of just throwing yourself into it, really? I mean, you didn't really, you'd never run a pub before. You said you
no,
opened this pub up. I mean, what gave you the confidence to do that?
uh, I don't know if I had the confidence. I mean, because the thing for me is that I never worked in a pub, only restaurants and cafes, but I've always spent a lot of time in a pub. So
You've
I
done the
always,
market research from the
yeah,
customers.
there was a lot of research, which is a fun part. So I obviously then wanted a pub that I would like to sit in.
Okay, so was this something that you'd been thinking about for a while, but until obviously the opportunity with the Kenton just kind of popped up in front of you, that you'd never really taken action on it?
Yeah, and I've always had a sort of desire of having a bar or a pub. And
Mm.
I think
Mm.
during that gap year, if you like, I did a lot of travel in America. I'm a massive fan of American bars. You just
Hmm.
walk in and you sit by the bar, you start chatting to people.
Yeah, yeah,
The whole decor, that's really important for me. To have like really interesting decor on the walls, and the music. So obviously, I took a lot of the things that I really love about pubs into the Kenton when I opened it. But the problem,
yeah.
like you said, is it was a very different area back then. So
Mm.
it took a long, long time before something happened.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So,
it was,
I mean, I guess because I think when we spoke prior to this podcast, we was you was telling me, I think you was one of the first kind of influential businesses, I guess, in the area that kind of tipped the scale, or started to tip the scale in a direction of slight more gentrification, in a way, I suppose, to some extent. It's like, bringing a higher value pub into the area and making it more of a destination rather than your typical kind of backstreet boozer, as we would call them. So I mean, and was there, when you opened around then, was that the case? It was not many other kind of businesses doing what you're doing, not many restaurants and stuff like that?
no, so the whole of Homerton, there wasn't really much happening at all there. Nothing on Wells Street. So, because I've always lived around Victoria Park, so you had the Lauriston, which is a great pub, who had
Mm.
opened up probably 2 or 3 years prior to this, serving pizzas. I think Broadway Market hadn't even started. Off Broadway, the cocktail bar, they opened a year before. So apart from that, there was nothing around Hackney Central, nothing in Clapton. So when I say nothing, of course there was stuff there, but not these sort of new wave pubs.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. You know, it wasn't so much of a. I guess what I'm trying to say, I suppose, with it is it wasn't so much of a destination. Like,
No.
you know, I would think now that, you know, even being from the other side of London, you know, not the other side, but down in the south, I'd consider going up to Hackney for, you know, an evening out or a meal, or you know what I mean. And I wouldn't have done that 15 years ago. And I think so. What kind of so your inspiration? It's kind of a very mixed inspiration, really. I mean, you've obviously got you know, the stuff from that you've inspiration from home and trying to make it, you know, like that, like inspirational from your upbringing and stuff like that. And then you've got the stuff in America as well, and your experiences there. How did you get sort of, where did your inspiration come from? You know, did you got a lot of inspiration from stuff that's going on in the UK as well, and what you'd seen there? Because what you've done with the pub, what I'm quite interested in is you kind of got a Norwegian theme, haven't you? But you've not, you know, it's not like it's an ice bar or something like that.
Oh, no. No.
It's still got that pub feel, right? You know?
Yeah.
Kind of got your twist on it.
I was really wary when I took it over because it's obviously been shut for 2 years. But when I took it over, I always had in mind, I don't want to mess around with the pub too much. It's because pubs are institutions. This is a beautiful old building from 1865. Yeah. So it's not like I can mess around with it too much. So the aim was always to keep it a traditional British boozer, but then I could then use the walls to put Norwegian stuff on. So
kind of tell your own story through that.
Yeah, so that's why, you know, it's still a beautiful pub, pretty much like a boozer style, but with a Norwegian twist. You know, I've got the tapestry that my nanny made. We've got a big moose head that my granddad shot back in 1972. You know, family pictures, black and white on the walls. So there's a lot of Norway stuff going on, but it never goes away, takes away the sort of traditional British.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing with pubs, right? It's quite a balance, isn't it? Because whilst you want to stand out as a pub, there is still that kind of regal, classic feel that everyone wants from a pub, you know, like kind of that, you know, dark wood furniture and, you know, just that homely kind of feeling that we've become used to with pubs.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, with a restaurant, you can often be a little bit more creative with things, right? But with pubs, you kind of still got to keep that tradition, but it's a fine balance between keeping a tradition and standing out as well, right? That's two very kind of tough things to balance. I think must be quite hard, I guess, to get that balance right.
Yeah, and I think coming from a different country was obviously something that was stuck in my mind as well. I didn't want to come in as a sort of foreigner and take of the boosters, but because I did actually, funnily enough, have some problems in the beginning. I received a threat letter through the letterbox.
Oh wow! Okay.
Blaming me for social genocide.
Right. Okay. You're still here, so that's a good thing.
It's taken over, you know, beloved boozer, and it was pretty harsh letter actually. All the windows got smashed in after six months of trading. So it wasn't just easy, you know. So there was some resistance among the locals, but then you know, I've kind of decided not to look too much into this, and it would obviously hopefully go away, which it did.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing as well, isn't it? You're gonna, you know, when you're doing something like that, like you say, with these kind of like British institutions that are pubs, you know, even if the pub shut down, it doesn't mean that it still hasn't got sort of like a strong fan base.
No.
People don't like change, right? They don't like to see, you know, these new kind of style pubs coming in, and they feeling like it's stamping on their, you know, their old kind of haunt and stuff. I think that must have shook you up though a bit when that happened, and like did you have kind of second thoughts at the time? I mean,
no, I didn't have second thoughts. I did contact the police. especially after the threat letter, and they sort of told me that, look, it's probably someone really drunk wrote it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And they obviously said just call us if any problems. But like I said, I haven't really had much problems. We barely have. I think we've only had 2 fights in a pub for 10 years.
That's really good. Yeah. Yeah.
It's and the regulars we have are fantastic. We've got a lot of support from the local community, and so it was probably one of them, a really upset person.
Yeah.
Home one
Yeah,
night.
right. Well, people are very passionate about their pubs,
Yeah.
that's for sure. You can't please everyone. I think that's an important thing
No.
to remember. With any business, you're always going to get pushbacks on things you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's important not to let those pushbacks stop you, like going after your vision and your mission.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your drinks, and we're going to get onto the food side of things as well, which I know we spoke about because you're doing some quite interesting stuff there, and I like the concept that you've got. But still, we start with the drinks. Obviously, it being a pub, I mean, you've got quite a good selection. Like, how do you come up with the inspiration for what drinks to sell? Because there's like so many drinks now. If you like, literally, the amount of craft breweries and stuff popping up, and it's just, I mean, how do you come up with the inspiration? How do you choose what ones make the cut, what beers make the cut? I mean, is there a kind of a creative process to it? I mean, how does it all work?
Yeah, so 10 years ago when I took it over, it was tied to a brewery. So I could only order drinks from the brewery.
That's the thing. A lot of pubs are, aren't they? I think not many people realise that. So yeah, I mean.
But then in 2015, I became a free house, which was a big revolution for me. So all of a sudden, I could pick and choose from left, right, and centre.
Wow.
So but then, like you said, you have such a big revolution with craft beers, and there's so many breweries. I think on a weekly basis, we probably get 2 or 3 visits from different reps from breweries or drink companies. So it's actually a luxury for us who are pubs, because there were so many fantastic local breweries, which we have on the draft. We got 15 draft lines in total, and 3 of them we keep rotating on a regular basis. So the process which you asked about is mainly Steve, the manager, who is really he really knows his beer, and so he kind of pick and choose which ones to get in every week. I kind of tend to stick to lager myself, and I drink a golden ale, big wave, and maybe IPA. So I'm still not that sort of craft beer guy yet, or definitely not a cask person. But so it's a lot to do with we kind of see, we get a lot of taster cans from the reps, so there's a lot of tasting going on, and you see which one are popular and not. So this is a really fun process,
So you kind of, I guess, so that you're taking a lot of inspiration from the sales as well, right? Obviously, so you're seeing, right, okay, this one sold well, right? We need to get on more often, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and then you obviously have to look at price points. So we have a really good one. The biggest supplier we use is Cave Direct, who we have a good dialogue with, and they have specials every week. But I think it was last year we did a mistake, because we thought it was a 30-litre keg, but it was a 20-litre keg of a Norwegian beer that we've got in. But in order to sort of have a 60% GP, we would have to sell a pint for 17 quid. Wow. So
that's almost average prices in London these days, though.
Yeah, exactly. So we couldn't have it. I think we put the price down to £13 a pint, but it's with the craft beer industry, and you have a lot of beautiful things like double IPAs and high percentages. Obviously, it costs a lot more to buy them in, so we would then have to sell them for a lot more. So that's how it kind of works these days.
Yeah. I think people are a bit more open these days to spending more on these kind of craft beers, though, because it's become a little bit like the wine industry in a way, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's much more kind of, there's much more artisan feel to a lot of the brands and stuff like that.
Absolutely, and that's why of all our sort of premium beers, we wouldn't offer a pint. You know, we would offer this in like a third or a half a pint.
I suppose that's probably safe as well, because it sounds like a pint of that stuff could be quite interesting.
Yeah, and people kind of you sort of if you drink an 8% double IPA, for example, you can't neck it down like you do with a lager.
No,
You appreciate it more. You sort of take more time to drink it, probably. So if you have a nice sort of stemmed half pint glass, it's much better than in a pint glass.
Yeah, I mean, those beers tend to have a much stronger flavour as well, aren't they? They're much richer and don't tend to be something that you'd want to kind of just sort of scull the whole pint. Now that's really interesting. So I wanted to also dig into a little bit more about the food side, because you know what you've done with that is you focused on primarily one thing. Certainly from what I've seen from your website, is just doing an amazing roast dinner, right?
Yeah,
that's really British staple, especially in a pub. Everyone loves a roast dinner. Tell us a little bit more about that, because what interests me specifically is that you haven't kind of gone really broad with your food. Now, I know you're doing some stuff with the pizzas, which we'll get onto in a bit as well. But I'm interested to know kind of what kind of inspired you to just specifically focus on the roast dinner, because I think that's quite a wise move, because rather than trying to do everything, you just focused on doing one thing well and being known for it. So I'd like to know a little bit more about kind of what led you down that path, and perhaps also the kind of, you know, the success of it and how that's gone.
Yeah, I think it started in the beginning 10 years ago, because I honestly didn't actually know what a Sunday roast was, even after living in this country for a while. So when I opened, we only did pie and mash.
Okay, well, that's a pretty good staple as well, to be fair.
but that was every day of the week, including a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously soon realized that no one really came in on a Sunday to eat pie and mash until somebody told me that, you know, you need to have a Sunday roast. And then I started doing a lot of research with Sunday roast, and obviously fell in love with it. And I realized that Sunday roast are like religion in this country. And if you do a good Sunday roast, you know, that's your Sunday sorted, you know. And I love my drinks and I love pub, but I'm not the sort of best when it comes to food and in kitchens. So that's why instead of hiring my own chef, I kind of decided to have a residency. So somebody in my kitchen. So it's like a business in my business, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we've operated over the years. So
who is it that does the roast now? Is that still a business doing the roast, or have you taken that in-house?
Yeah, so this is Desi, who is an old friend of mine.
Awesome.
Who now only do Sunday. So he's got his own brand, Papa Des Sunday Roast, and his roast are of the sort of massive sorts. It's almost like a roast that your grandmother made.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the pictures. In fact, I'm looking at one of the pictures right now.
Yeah,
it's damn good. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good. It's filling. People, you know, you feel full when you've eaten one. It's good, top quality produce, and it's becoming really popular now. You know, so we do. We're sort of getting quite fully booked on Sundays now.
Wow, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
So like I said, you know, if you can then deliver a good roast, plus great service, obviously, then, you know, that's the formula on a Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's very wise, the way that you've kind of looked at the business and gone, actually, I'm not like the Mr. Foodie that understands food necessarily. Let's get someone else in, because I think a lot of pub owners will try and do everything themselves in house, right? Because that is always traditionally always what everyone's always done. But I think, you know, more recently, I've certainly seen it with a lot of pubs, where they've been a bit clever about it, and they thought, actually, well, let's bring someone in who's already got a brand, who's already got a little bit of a following to some extent, and people know of that brand, and bring them into the pub. And then, of course, that's a perfect marriage, right? Because you've got the amazing pub, and then you've got the food coming in, but you're also able to support other businesses in the process.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that as well actually results in, you know, more customers for both of you, really. So I think it's a really interesting concept. And you've done that with the pizzas as well, right?
Yeah, so on the food residency side of things, so my main perspective is if I have my own chef and I buy my own produce, you have the risk of the wastage. You
Of
have
course. Yeah.
the extra staff costs, and
Right.
but to then take it externally to have a business in my business, they deal with all the staff cost in the kitchen, and they buy all the produce, and I take a percentage, like a commission of the food sales.
Yeah, and I mean that's a very
So
common approach for a lot of businesses, right? But not necessarily
yeah,
food and drink businesses traditionally. But you see that with, I don't know, you name it. Property developers where they'll develop property and they'll have a plumber that comes in and does his thing and and it's a very
yeah,
common approach, to sort of white label other people's services in a way, I guess, to some extent.
yeah,
So, so yeah, that interesting point. So that, I mean that obviously takes away a lot of the risk, and I think it seems to me like quite a good step, even if you did have a pub and you did want to eventually take the kitchen in-house. Is a great way to experiment as well
yeah,
with what people like, because you're not fronting a load of cost, you're not fronting a load of cost into menu development and, like you say, produce, and and also because you're bringing in a business that's already got kind of a working product,
yeah.
the risk is lower of it actually not working. You see, so very interesting. And you do the same with the pizzas, right? So people can order takeaway
Yeah,
pizzas. So tell us a bit more about that.
yeah. So the pizza. So between Monday and Saturdays, we have nobody in our kitchen. So we are partnered up with our good friends Yard Sale Pizza.
I know Yard Sale. Yep, their pizzas look amazing, and I've
Yeah,
followed them
it's
on Instagram. Actually, they're great.
fantastic. And they have 5 sites across London now. They are really great guys. They've expanded from they actually started across the road from us in their backyard with a small little pizza oven, and
Hence
that's
the name.
hence the name. And so yeah, so we have a great partnership with them now, where people in the pub, we have yard sale menus on the tables, and the customers call
Yeah, that's awesome.
them, and then they come and deliver straight to the pub.
Perfect combination, right? That's
A
great.
great combination. There's obviously no mess in our kitchen.
Do you just say? They just get their delivery? They eat out of the box in the pub.
Yeah,
And
and that's
so
it.
there's
Yeah,
nothing, no plates, nothing like that. It's just very
nothing
casual.
else. Yeah, it's just some napkins, and that's it, and then it's been working really well, and that's between Monday and Saturday. So we've done that for 3 months now. So it's it's going well.
It's awesome, right? Because I mean, yeah, everyone when people eat, they like to drink, and when they
Yeah,
drink, they like to eat. So I think,
yeah,
yeah, I think that's such a great concept, though, and I think there's a lot to learn from that, because I think like I said before, I know I'm kind of labouring the point now, but traditionally people didn't really think like that. Pubs didn't really think like that. They would have looked at what you're doing there as, oh, I don't want to, have another business encroach on my customers. I want to keep them all to myself. And in doing that, actually, you kind of shut a lot of opportunity out in a way. And I think, it's so good to see that. And I think it's a very interesting lesson for anyone that's perhaps in your position, or looking to open a pub or something like that. If you're not necessarily aligned with what to do for food, or it seems a little bit daunting to you, what a great idea. If most pubs are going to have a kitchen, you could hire out to another company, or even so just literally make a deal with a company that can deliver. I mean,
yeah,
it's just excellent. I think it's a really, really great way to go about it. So I mean, you came onto our radar because you've got an incredible online reputation, as I mentioned in the intro. You've got all of these accolades and awards. Tell us more about how you kind of built that reputation, and because these things don't just happen, right? You have to kind of work at it. What kind of things have you done to kind of build that reputation and get that, get all the accolades you've got, and become such a popular place? Because I mean, I guess there's a long story behind that, but if you could summarize it best you can.
yeah. I mean. Well, from the beginning, like I mentioned in the beginning, the important thing for me was to build a pub I feel comfortable in, that a pub that I would like to go to. I don't know if I'm right or I'm wrong, but I kind of felt that that's how I wanted my pub to be.
So being your own best customer in a way.
Yeah, so that's why I focus a lot on the interior. I want it to be obviously Scandi based, but also really homely.
Mm-hmm.
The lighting is really important for me. It needs to be nicely dimmed, not like a lot of the old traditional pubs and cafes where it's like bright. It's almost like Blackpool.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I was actually in the bar recently, and I couldn't put my finger on why it didn't feel right. And then after a couple, I was like, they've got floodlights in here, and it's just like,
yeah.
Like,
and then to have a really nice music system, So so that's obviously the package the pub comes in, that's how I set it up. But the main thing, I mean, a pub can always look as nice as it can, but the most important thing is the staff, it's the team.
Yeah.
And through the years, I've had some fantastic teams, like really good customer service, focused on the locals. And that's obviously the main thing, because that's the people who are there.
They're representing your brand, basically, aren't they? Every day.
It's like the team I've got now is just absolutely amazing. Really good communication between us. Steve, the manager, Taylor, assistant manager, and Cabrini, who's the supervisor. So that triangle there, it's a really good, well-connected one. And then we have everyone else who are just fantastic. So we have a really good team spirit. We go really well together. We just went bowling the other day. So to have that, a good team in place and a tip-top customer service, that's the most important. And then I can do all my things with the decor, the lighting. I mean, I keep bringing things back to the pub, like quirky lights that I find in brick-brack shops.
Well, this thing that's interesting is because that's the one. So you touched on two things there, really. Obviously having the team, which is having a good team, which is massive. But then, I think what shines through in your response as well is the actual. You've actually got a genuine passion for pubs. That's something, and you are a customer of pubs. And I think a lot of people go into these kind of businesses for the wrong reasons a lot of the time. I think we spoke about it before. People think, one day I'll open a restaurant and be a millionaire, or it's like, it's not. You've got to make sure that you've got in your heart the right reason for doing these kind of things. And I think because you've got that passion, you are a customer of pubs, and you enjoy pubs. That puts you in a position of being able to understand what you want. If you get what you want right out of the pub, there's probably a good chance that a lot of other people are going to feel the same, right?
Yeah, and I also think it's important to never rest and to just put your feet up and think everything is hunky dory, because the climate is always changing. You always need to keep adding things to a pub. Whether it's you need to upgrade yourself, you need to look at new solutions, and we keep doing that all the time as well. There's always something new going on, or
I suppose the other thing as well, the churn of people. Like traditionally in London, like these boozers, they used to serve people that would probably families had lived in this area for many years or decades, centuries, perhaps. Now people are moving in and out of London all the time, and it's always changing, and people, younger people move in, older ones move out, etc. So you've kind of got to keep that. You've got to keep getting new people in, haven't you? Really, not just, you can't just rely on your regular customers, because they're not always necessarily going to be there, right? So I suppose that's an important point as well.
Yeah.
So what do you think is kind of the biggest factor or decision that's kind of contributed to the success of the pub? And we've talked about obviously the team. We've talked about yourself being a fan of the pub. Is there anything else that's kind of in there that you feel is kind of a big factor in this?
Well, I think the biggest factor was to become a free house, like I mentioned, to be removed from being tied with a brewery, to be in complete charge of the drinks. That was a big thing. I also think all the sort of profits that's come into the pub have more or less been invested back into the pub.
Right.
So we've obviously made a lot of improvements there. Like, 5 years ago, I converted the old garage in the back into a nice little garden snug, for example.
Right,
And
yeah, cool.
all of a
Yeah.
sudden, we had a perfect birthday party space. We got a back room last year that we built banquet seating all around it. So again, that kind of tripled the
So
capacity.
I think this is a really important point. Actually, I think this is a really important point because it's about reinvesting in a business, and I think it's, it's important across the board for all business owners, really. But I think it's very easy if something starts going well, you can sit on your laurels and think, "Oh, I'm going to have all of this profit to myself. I'm going to go on a nice holiday. I'm going to get a nice car, etc., etc." And actually, not necessarily investing it back in the business. And I think that's a huge mistake. And I know a lot of restaurants make that mistake and suffer down the line by sitting on their laurels. You know, thinking that the success will last forever. Actually, it's probably going to last less time now than it ever has done because things change so fast, right?
It changes so fast.
I think that's a really important point is, you know, making sure that you're always asking the question, you know, how can I improve my business and make it better?
Yeah.
And how are things changing? You know, I mean, what sort of, what I want to try and understand as well is sort of some of the big challenges that you've faced as well, because no doubt, you know, as we've kind of touched on, none of these journeys are a complete straight road. There's always a lot of twists and turns. So what's some of the biggest challenges you've had, biggest setbacks that you've had in sort of growing, managing the Kenton?
The biggest is the building itself. It's an old building. So to be able to maintain an old building is probably the biggest challenge.
Right. And I suppose it's listed as well, right? I don't know much about that kind of side of things.
It's not listed, but with old buildings, you know, there's always things that, you know, go wrong. You know, there's been a lot of roof leaks.
How old again was the building? 18 something?
1865.
Wow, it's so old, isn't it? It's unbelievable.
So I think that's been the biggest challenge. Like always, you know, you kind of think that you've done everything that you need to do with the building, and then the roof is leaking up there now. So in hindsight, I should obviously have raised another 60,000-70,000 pounds 10 years ago and got a complete new roof. Right. But these are the things, you know, when you start a business, you obviously have the money you have from loans and what have you. So I didn't do anything with the roof 10 years ago, and I've certainly paid for it over the years. And so an old building, dealing with equipment, you know, there's never a week without anything that's sort of breaking or needs maintenance. So I've kind of gotten used to that bit.
Yeah. So I suppose it's about, you know, understanding that these things are going to arise and not letting it kind of stress you out and down.
And then obviously there was obviously a big challenge the first 2-3 years because it was hard. It was hard business. It was hard to break even back then.
And I can imagine, right, if you know, when you first opened, not really having direct experience of working in a pub, when these problems arose, you're probably like, oh, wow, what do I do?
Exactly. So if you then get a problem with a building that then costs you £3,000 and you then have to fork up this money and then you get into arrears with the bills and what have you. So it's been some challenging times through the years, but it's sort of, and this is the thing when you start a business, you don't really know much about it. You certainly you learn all the time as well from mistakes. Don't you?
And I think that's important. You've always got to keep learning, you know, in any business, but particularly, you know, an industry like pubs or restaurants and things like that, because, you know, if you're not learning, you're kind of losing out, really. I mean, you're going to fall behind the competition and stuff like that. So one question I've got is, if you was to start all this over from scratch again, so let's go back to 2008, 2009, just before you kind of took the restaurant over. What would you do differently? Is there anything that stands out, you think? I mean, we've obviously talked about the roof, so I guess buying a brand new roof straight away might be an option.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe, yeah. I think I would probably have spent the money differently on the refurb project. Mm-hmm. I probably wouldn't have spent 10 grand in a kitchen, for example. Talking about what we talked about, I would have probably just got a pizza operator from the get-go,
Of course,
and then spending money on different places, and then the more you earn, then I could have built a kitchen. So I think the whole startup and where do you spend your money, I wouldn't have spent £60 per chair on nice sort of French armchairs that then I realized all broke after 2 months because because those kind of chairs are not made for a pub, you know.
No, pubs need good sturdy Chesterfields or something, you know.
Yeah, good sturdy pub chairs. So but you know, it's I think that's the main thing. Spending money wisely.
So budgeting correctly, yeah. I can imagine that's something that can get out of hand very quickly, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing I would have done differently.
Okay, yeah, interesting, yeah. So one thing I want to get back to is the drinks, because what I didn't ask you was what at the moment is your most popular drink?
The most popular is the Big Wave. It's a golden ale from Hawaii.
Oh wow, I've not heard of that.
It's made by Kuna Brewery, and
oh, I know. Yeah, okay, right, yeah.
That's all I drink, you know. So whenever
it's your favorite.
Yeah, and we buy these from Cave Direct, and there's not that many pubs in East London who have Big Waves. So it kind
is that a draft? That's a draft beer on the tap, is it? Or
yeah, that's a draft, and it's absolutely amazing, you know. So
what's amazing about it? What's it? Is it a flavour or what? Just
it's a golden ale, so it's probably like something in between a lager and an IPA.
Oh, okay.
It's really fruity, tropical. You know, it's got a sort of little taste of pineapple and mango.
Oh wow.
So that's it's just really easily drinkable. If you're a lager drinker and not quite sort of a craft beer drinker like myself, that is sort of the perfect one.
Sounds right up your street. Yeah, now that's super popular, is it, amongst the locals, right?
Yeah, it's popular, but you can never obviously if you count the amount of pints, lager is the best seller.
Yeah, the classic. Yeah.
You know, lager is the best seller. we have 3 different lagers on draft. Yeah, you can never get away from the lager.
Yeah, everyone does like the good old fashioned, easy to drink lagers. It's a bit of a staple in the pubs. Great. Well, it's been amazing talking. So I just wanted to kind of get a little bit more into the specific kind of advice side of things. So if you were speaking to anyone or giving advice to anyone that was kind of looking to start a pub, is there anything specific that you tell them?
Well, I think maybe try to find your niche. You know, try to find something that you would then stand out a bit of, and just go for it. You know.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, that's been clear from what you did. You know, you got to throw yourself in. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about it, talking about it with businesses. You know, I can't count the amount of times I've sat in a pub and someone's told me a great business idea that they're going to launch, and then never happens. Right? You got to do something, take action.
Yeah.
So, what's next for the brand? I mean, that's kind of what I want to understand now. Is you know, obviously, is there anything upcoming for the Kenton? You've done the stuff with the pizzas. You're famous for your roast. You've got a great selection of craft beers. It feels like you've done most of the things you need to do at this point. So, is there anything else on the horizon?
Yeah, we've got a lot of interesting plans in the Kenton coming up this year. But we're always going to have so the Kenton will always be evolving. But in terms of other projects, you know, I am a co-founder of 2 other pubs.
Okay.
It's the Horn of Plenty in Stepney Green and the Prince Arthur in Shoreditch with my business partner Grant.
And have you been? Have you been involved in those for long, or? Yeah,
so the Kenton is just me my personal project, and these 2 other pubs are funded by investors.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that's obviously something I'm involved in, and I also just started my own drone business. I'm a licensed drone pilot.
Oh wow! Well, I didn't know that. God, you told me this earlier. The podcast would have gone in a totally different direction.
Yeah, and I'm also a Google assertive photographer. So I've basically just started an own business offering drone and aerial photos and 360 virtual tours.
Awesome, right? So a true entrepreneur by the sound of it, really, at heart.
Yeah, it's because I try to get a lot of quotes for people to come into the Kenton and do it, and my God, it's expensive. And then I thought, I'll just do it myself.
So, so can we expect some kind of interesting drone videos of the Kenton? Are there some out there already?
It's already on the website.
Oh, okay, we'll have to
on the Kenton website, and I've already doing Hackney Council and the Waltham Forest Council. So
amazing.
It's another side project, and it started more like a hobby, but now that's a little business as well. So
yeah.
So
yeah.
let's see how
that's always. I always I need to find an excuse to buy a drone because they look so much fun.
Yeah.
I've played with a friend's one briefly, but I need to find a reason. So maybe I need to start a drone business. Maybe that's the next venture I need to take myself.
No, it's a lot of fun as
well. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. So it just to finally, before we close, if people want to check out the Kenton, what are the social media handles? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, so it's kentonpub.co.uk, and the social media handles are Kenton Pub on Instagram and Facebook. We don't really use Twitter too much, but it's mainly Instagram these days.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, keep an eye out there. That's where we post all the events and everything that's happening, all the beautiful beers that we get in, and
the drone videos as well, I hope.
And drone videos, of course.
Brilliant. Well, Egil, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking to you. I know there's been a ton of value, so I really appreciate your openness and honesty, and I'm sure the listeners got a great deal out of this podcast. So thanks very much for coming onto the show, and I'll see you again soon.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Bite Britain. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Bite Britain, and also subscribe to us and watch the video version of this interview on YouTube so you can get updates on future releases and, more importantly, exclusive opportunities to win prizes from our awesome guests.